Mulai nih. So understand that the rise of political extremist group currently already become more bigger inside the state, already become so radical and extreme even in the status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Their action might cause lots of casualties, broke facilities inside the state, and so on and so forth. But understand they are being so radical even in status quo because they have no capacity to include in the government system, ladies and gentlemen, and have no any capacity to utilize their political power and tend to misuse their own power with their lots of followers, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say that it's really problematic, ladies and gentlemen. So as government team, we say that our stance, we want to achieve the political stability and decreasing political turmoil that might happen in opposition side of the house, ladies and gentlemen. So how we mechanize it, right? So we allow these kinds of political we allow these kinds of extremist group to have a form of political parties, allow them to participate in election, allow them to enter in the parliament or even campaign their own parties at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, all the parties process would be registered in legitimate process. What does this mean, right? These kinds of parties should have their own mission and their own vision that also be requirements on the level on how these kinds of vision and mission are not really backlash to the idea of democracy itself, ladies and gentlemen. So as long as its objective to give the betterment to the state, development through variety of channel and ideologies, we say that it's okay in our side of the house. If then the parties like HMI, Khilafah that want to champion their own political agenda, we say that it's okay, but as long as it should be going through the constitutional process and also in political arena. So 3 arguments in my speech. First is that why it's principally following the idea of democracy, and secondly why it's better to cater them and prevent the future turmoil that would happen in opposition side of the house, and third argument why in our side, if you want to change these kinds of radical values, why it can be changed in our side of the house. So first argument, why it's principally following the idea of democracy. So understand that the ideal democracy in our side of the house consists of 2 things, right? First is that we want to cater all the ideologies of the people or the community, and secondly how we would going to respect individual and community experience and different ideologies at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. First thing that cater all the ideologies, we say that the idea of democracy must cater all the ideologies from the people, ladies and gentlemen. Why it's really exclusive, right? First is that because these kinds of ideology based on the individual voice that must be considered that is very important and impactful towards to the state development. But secondly, we say that these communities demand that also must be catered at the end of the day. So what happened in the status quo right now, ladies and gentlemen? We say that the process on how you limit these kinds of people, limitations to these kinds of people and community to voice out their demand is really significant give significant harmful towards to these kinds of community, ladies and gentlemen. We say that it's harmful because let's see, right? It's not 100% proven that these kinds of community like HMI, have FPI, and so on and so forth is proven wrong or not, ladies and gentlemen. We say that example like Khilafah, for example, that bring ideology that is not really proven that they are wrong at the end of the day. These kinds of principle of ideology is not give any direct harm to society. For example, ladies and gentlemen, it's only cater their own followers at the end of the day. So we say that these kinds of ideology is still debatable and can be discussed in our side of the house, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say that the platform for you to cater these kinds of people, you must include these kinds of community inside the parliament discussion, ladies and gentlemen. So we say that it's different with the limitation of government on how you limit the people to having blasphemy in religion, for example, ladies and gentlemen. It's different, right? Because this case shows there is a direct harm towards to the people or even the community, ladies and gentlemen. It's different with the ideology of HMI that is not have any significant harm towards to all people inside of the state, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say that limit the effort of these kinds of people and these kinds of community is not going to achieve the ideal democracy in their side of the house. That is why, as democracy state, as democracy government, it's really important because the community expecting the individual demand at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say that it's really important to cater all the ideologies of these kinds of community, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, let's talk about how we respect the individual and community experience, right? So based on they are living based on their experience that live inside their own state, ladies and gentlemen. That is shows to you how they are living with the ideologies that actually experienced by their own daily life, ladies and gentlemen. So we say that it's really important because it's very important to having right to define your ideas about how to build your own nations, ladies and gentlemen. We say that living in state, of course, there are a lot of parties, ladies and gentlemen, that consist in different goals and different vision on how they construct their own nations, ladies and gentlemen. Example like PDIP that focus to progressivity, to people in the grassroots, or PKS that focus to Islamic religions, ladies and gentlemen. These kinds of variety of political parties comes by their experience through the system of the state, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say that it's really important to respect all the experience of these kinds of individual and community together in the process of the parliament. Second argument, why it's better to cater them and prevent the future turmoil. So the idea of radicalism or riot would be increasing in opposition side of the house because you are not give them any legitimate platform to talk about their own ideologies, ladies and gentlemen. That is why they want to use a strategy that is really harmful towards the nation because they want to attract the attention of the government, for example. That is why we say that it's very beneficial in our side of the house under two reasons, right? First is that we want to use systematic political progress. We say that the significant in our side, there will be systematic process because you should give the report, for example, about your working program, ladies and gentlemen. In comparative in their side of the house, it's different because the government cannot track down what is exactly your activities at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. That is why it's really beneficial in our side because the supervision would be always exist in our side. But secondly, the media would portray in different things, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what happened right now, right? The media always try to portray the bad things of these kinds of community, ladies and gentlemen. In our side, the media portray would be better because the acknowledgement is exists at the very first beginning. Media would portray the substantive material inside those kinds of community rather than in comparative in their side, there will be unnecessary media portrayal that actually would only create more tension inside of the state, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say that it's going to be beneficial in our side. Third argument, why in our side, if you want to change the radical values, it can be happen in our side. Ladies and gentlemen, understand that they are these kinds of community, for example, they are inherently demand for peace for all the people, ladies and gentlemen. Community like HTI, Khilafah actually respect for human being, respect for human peace. Include them in a government political system, there is no such a big hard circumstances that would happen in our side. But also understand that these kinds of proposal would need appealing and voiced by the society. When they're included into this kinds of process, they would show how the image would be better in our side. And also the acknowledgement would be better in our side of the house, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we're proud to propose.
Panels, the problem we face right now, far-right populist groups such as HTI in Indonesia taking control of the country or drive public opinions to the way that they want, to the extent hamper other layers of society or marginalized communities to be democratic, ladies and gentlemen, to fight for their rights, to speak up about their demands, and etc. We see that HTI, for example, being violent if any communities is not have the same mind, for example, or same ideology that they have. This is what as the opposition side of the house, we don't want this to happen. What we want is we want to exclude them because we want to achieve the world where people where first all layers of society feel safe to speak up and people have safe to propose aspirations, and second of all, we want to achieve ideal political body in our government, which I will extend later in my substantive material. So before I jump into my substantive, I have some responses towards the government side of the house. They said Kak Neny said that they are being barbaric or extreme because they have no political power to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder what they really want to achieve to the extent of that they are being violent, ladies and gentlemen. Kak Neny never explained that to us, right? And we believe that if we say that they are being violent because they want to take power, they want to take lead, and they want to fulfill their own people interest, ladies and gentlemen. In the status quo, if HTI, for example, want to demand for religious policies, we believe that status quo is enough. There is Ministry of Religions that can do that for you, and also there's already Islamic policies, for example, that can cater you. Which we think that if your interest is not extremist, they cater you, ladies and gentlemen. And so, second of all, they said that they want to cater all layers of society. Yes, we believe that it is true. We should cater all people, but we say that not in extreme way, ladies and gentlemen. And it is also not exclusive because at the end of the day, in their proposal, these extremists will not cater all. For example, it will not cater all. For example, if these extremist groups have the political power, they only consider their religion's interests, for example, and not cater the rest of the members of society, ladies and gentlemen. Which why we believe that we believe that the principle of democracy is not in line with their proposal, ladies and gentlemen. And third of all, why by including the extremist group will bring more beneficials will be extended in Iksan's proposal. So moving on, why we want to achieve ideal political body in government, because we believe that extremist communities such as HTI in political body is not really understand about the political conditions in our country. They just understand about their religious interests and so on and so forth, which we believe that it will not create ideal governmental body in our country, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we believe that it is unjustifiable to include these extremists to become a part of our in parliament. Let me characterize the extremist group first. They really strongly hold their ideology, what they believe, in a barbaric way. They are hard to influence, hard to discuss with, and this is, we believe, is not kind of actors we believe that are not compatible in political divisions in our country, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe that it is. We believe that the characteristic that these extremist communities have is not compatible in political divisions in our countries. Thus, we don't want these extremists to be included in our political divisions, ladies and gentlemen. In our proposal, we give them mechanisms. They still have space to space to discuss about their political interests. For example, they are still allowed to vote, they are still allowed to propose aspirations, and so on and so forth. So we don't want them to give them political power, which I will explain later in my substantive. The extensions in my substantive material. I will bring first why the trade-off is in line with democracy, and second of all, why give them political power will bring harm. First argument is why the trade-off is in line with the democracy. Yes, we agree that as democratic country we cannot give equal power, but we say that it is okay because we believe that the agenda they do to begin with is not in line with the democracy, which they oftentimes deliver hate speech towards other communities, which hate speech to other they do not want cater other ideology, that they are backlash with their with their ideology, which we think that it is not compatible characteristic in political divisions, ladies and gentlemen. And second of all, there is still in our proposal, we believe that there is still strong principle of democracy in our proposal. Ladies and gentlemen, we still give them rights to vote, rights to discuss, and so on and so forth. So the principle of of democracy will be held stronger in our side, because in their proposal, at the end of the day, they want cater all people, which can halt which can violate the principle of democracy. And second of all, why if we give them political power will bring more harm. We can see that far-right populists in the status quo is extremely barbaric, right? We can see that that religious community in Indonesia is so extremist. Imagine if and this happens even prior we give them political power, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine if we give them political chance, if we give them political to elect, for example, they will win because they are the majority, ladies and gentlemen. When they have the power, they will abuse the power. They will only cater their own people, which we believe that as a democratic country is not an ideal word, ladies and gentlemen. And more than discriminations towards minority, towards immigrants, for example, because they have the political power, they have the capital to control the policies, to make the policies, to change the policies, to erase the policies, and so on and so forth. Even if they this answer the questions, these responses to Neny that say that even they still have we still going to do it in constitutional way, like elections and so on and so forth. We see that it is still not okay, because at the end of the day they will win and they will not cater all people, ladies and gentlemen. So we have proven to you why the principle of democracy is stronger in our side, and also why, and also we explain to you why if we include them, it will bring more harm than good. And my second speaker will bring you how if we include them, it will hamper the democracy. And second of all, their activity will be better if they are excluded in political body, ladies and gentlemen. Based on these reasons, the motion is false.
Panels, first thing first, they want the freedom of expression. Then first, they cannot prove why suddenly, if we are excluding those particular individuals or group, we can achieve the freedom of expression. Which parties that they want to pursue the freedom of those individual, or the freedom of the majority, which it is hampered by the existence of this party. None of the elaboration that could explain to it. Neny already proved to you that the most important thing in democracy is about it's about acknowledging every single voice inside of our society, that every voice is matter. The problem in our status quo is they want to exclude some voices that is also considered as a member of a state, that is also considered as a citizen. Thus, maybe the consideration of why they are doing hate speech or why they are becoming violent is not because of they are being having a very radical value. It is because of the nation is kicked them out and not giving them right to exercise their rights. The reason why this is possible, because it is their land, they want envision something that is true for their nation, and their nation reject their idea and not consider their particular idea is something that is applicable in the state. That is why they should prove to us why excluding those particular parties is able to achieve the sense of freedom of expression that they want to champion in the first place. But the second condition is they are very worried in the condition that this particular far-right movement can win the election somehow and can rule the country. Two responses in this. If you are in a liberal country, ladies and gentlemen, it is less likely to happen because their voices in status quo is already minimum. They are not heard by the society because they have very liberal value. But the problem is they are not acknowledging it. They are kicking them out as a society. That's harmful on their side. But even if they are win, it is okay because we are championing the principle of we are acknowledging their voices inside a particular society. I will explain to you why acknowledging their voices is also matter, and this discussion also will be healthy somehow. But next engagement, if they claim that they are very violent, they are very extremist. We as the government side, the House say, we are conceding that these particular parties somehow going to be extreme and somehow going to be violent. But the debate is not whether or not the debate should prove on whether or not they can be violent or not. The debate should prove which proposal can decrease the tension that these particular groups give as the response of the government negligence for their rights and their existence. Thus, they are doing harm. Thus, in our proposal, we want to prove to you why we are moving the tension down. Several discussions that I will bring in this debate. First discussion, why in our side, the inherent change, if you are acknowledging these particular radical groups, is can be happen. Second of all, why accepting a state group, it is not harmful and going to be beneficial towards the democracy inside of the state. Third of all, is the comparison of word in both sides if we are include or exclude them. First of all, why the radical group or inherently can be it can be exist. Neny already said to you that a certain group can also be pragmatic if they want to achieve their particular particular idea inside particular democracy. Why is that so? Because they tend to be appealing to the society, say to the society that I should be voted, then I should be chosen. Thus, the particular society should choose them. I should choose state groups. What are the momentum? They are acknowledging the system of a state, they are accepting the system of the constitution and say the constitution is the very right thing to do. The difference is we have our ideology on how running state, and it is legal, it is true constitutional, and it is true campaign. But even if, I will add to this, even if at the end of the day, they cannot change their stances, they are still be radical, there are two responses to this. First, they, inherently, what I say to the Chesa's argument, that they cannot win anyway in political election because they have very extreme ideologies to begin with. But the second of all, at the very least in our side, the process would be tracked down by the government. The process of them campaigning and telling to the society and what ideology and how they're spreading their ideology inside society is going to be easily tracked down by the government, and it is important to make sure that every radical movement and every violent movement that this particular group make, it is able to be tracked down and easily to hunt them down if they're going to be very harmful. The right example of this is HTI and FPI. The difference between HTI and FPI is FPI, they are registered to the government. You can know and track them, their activity. Otherwise, HTI, you cannot track them down. Then they are easily to spread their ideology in campus because the state groups cannot be identified as the government because easily they are illegal and their existence is banned inside of the particular state. We already proved to you that why they're going to be changed in status quo. But second of all, why accepting state group would not harmful towards democracy. Their best scenario is if you are accepting them, it will harmful towards democracy because the state group have a possibility to harming the constitutions that were being, for example. Neny already told to you that no, it is it is inherently in line with the principle of democracy. But I will add to this: if state group had the possibility of harming the constitution once they are up in, there are two reasons on this. First of all, there are so many counter narrative in status quo that exist. In the case of HTI, there are also moderate Muslim like NU or like Muhammadiyah that also counter of these particular radical and extremist narrative inside of Indonesian political spectrum, ladies and gentlemen. They also directly say that, oh no, this Khilafah system wouldn't work this way, for example. But secondly, mostly there are scholars who would do research toward the system and claim that state ideology is bad or not. Their academician would claim whether this particular set ideology is harmful towards the nation or not. Let the constitution decide, let the parliament decide, and let the society decide. It is better than the state government cannot give the room of research and discussion if you're not of these particular policies, ladies and gentlemen. But the second of all, why is better in our side? It is better because their campaign of this state group like HTI is going to be constructive by refuting those particular narrative brought by scholars and moderate Muslim if they want to gain voices and if they want to win. If NU say this group is bad, then the constructive engagement is happening because they want to say that no, our group is better and we are going to win the election. But third engagement, I will prove to you why the comparison in our word in both sides of the house, it is if we are include or exclude them. In our word, it is better if we are include them in our democracy or political sphere because the discussion and how the discourse happen is constructive and based on the objective narrative that is not going based on this assumption. let's break down this argument. It is better because the idea of how this particular state group give, it is about their vision, their mission, their election, their opening recruitments of its member, their conference, and also their stances towards certain activities or certain policies that maybe the government gives us to the society. What are the comparative in their side? The discussion only shaped by the media, for example, or by the majority narrative that there are state group is a very evil group that only consists of hate. They are want to changing the system of a nation without necessarily knowing what is the idea that this particular group champion. It is only based on the assumption, and the assumptions is very harmful in and of itself because you can act to certain groups based on what you are know and what you are not based on the constructive engagement and etc. etc. But second harm, it is the harm on how the society in grassroots society sees these particular groups. If the case of PKI is happening, not because of the case of the murder to the Chinese people, not happen because the Suharto banned PKI, but it is the narrative that society received after Suharto bans PKI, that the PKI is a very extreme group. Thus, it gives a sense of legitimation of the society to just hunt them down because their beliefs, the discussion around the society is their belief that those particular state groups or those particular people is able to be killed and to be separated in our society. Thus, comparatively, our side is better because we give a room of constructive engagement and discussions rather better than their side. It is given the hatred and too much assumption, and that is why we are with. Thank you.
Before I jump to my argument, let me engage to several points that government bench of the House trying to bring in this debate. 3 rebuttals towards Kak Neny's argument. First, she say that the reason why this group are being extreme in the first place is because they are not included in the political systems. Number one, why is that so? Second, we think that it's not happened because of that, but we think it happens because they see something that contradict their values. They see something that contradict their ideology, in which they think is the truest thing in the very first place. For example, the tendency to see themselves as the holiest, therefore they do several actions like sabotaging some books, for example, or sabotage pork restaurant, for example. This is to shows to you that they inherently see themselves as the truest one, and their ideology is the right one inside the society, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we don't see why the reason why they do this extremist activity is because they are not included in the political systems. Second rebuttals, they bring us that the essence of democracy is that it should cater all ideology. We say that democracy doesn't happen that way. The purpose of democracy is to cater all opinions, not the ideology, ladies and gentlemen. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we think that the current climate of democracy is that there should be a safety net for this democracy to perform well, ladies and gentlemen. For example, how we try to ban Communist Party because they are being too extreme and not in line with the democratic ideology. That is what democracy should be. It caters opinion, but not necessarily try to engage to all kind of extremist ideology in the first place. But even if they want to say that we don't cater them, we said, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to cater them in current status quo. We still acknowledging Islamic Party, for example. We still acknowledging Partai Bulan Bintang, for example, but because what is gentlemen? Because they are not extreme. They are the one that can perform and deliver Islamic ideology in a good way, not in an extremist way. Therefore, the representations under our side of the house is still going to be exist, right? It's not necessarily means that we are banning all Muslim party in current status quo. Third rebuttals, they say that their ideology can be changed. We say that it is not going to exist, ladies and gentlemen, because they will. The moment we give them political power, they want to say that we will give you political power if you decrease certain ideology of you. We said it will not happen because of course they will reject it, right? Because they see their ideology higher than politics. They see that they value their ideology higher than politics. They will not trade off their ideology, decreasing the ideology for politics, for example, because they want to perform well as an Islamic group, ladies and gentlemen. They see this Islamic ideology as higher than the political itself. And second, what's the point of catering them if you say what's the point of including them if you want to decrease certain degree of their ideology? They say that we want to cater all ideology, but they say that we need to decrease certain number of these people's ideology. So where is the points of discourse that will exist under their side of the house? Most likely, if you force them to, making some vision and mission that are really populist and adjusting their ideology, we said it's not going to create a better discourse, right? Because you will lose the points of their of catering their ideology in the very first place if you decrease it. The next rebuttals is rebuttals from Haykal's points. They say that they can be more controlled, ladies and gentlemen. We say that yes, probably you can control them if you give them political power, but it's not going to be exist efficiently because of why? Because control under the side of the house happen when this group already have a legitimate positions. Therefore, when you give someone legitimate positions, they have access to do, for example, campaign and etc. Right? Therefore, the hierarchical position that we have in current status quo will be hampered. The reason why we can control them in current status quo is because we have a hierarchical positions. We have, for example, we are higher than them. Therefore, we can we can repress them in a coercive way, ladies and gentlemen. Under the side of the house, this group have right to say that I am a legit political party. Therefore, you should not going to coerce me because I am protected by the constitutions. We say that control will be much better under our side of the house. Jump to my substantive material. In my speech, I will give you the why giving them political power will hamper the democracy. It is an extension from Chantika's points. And second, I will bring new argument on why there is no urgency to include them and why the protections will be better under our side of the house in terms of how they perform their religious activity better under our side of the house. First argument, why it will hamper the democracy in the very first place. Giving them political power means that you legitimize their ideology, right? When someone is legitimized as a party, they have right to campaign because they are protected by law, ladies and gentlemen. They have more access to spread their ideology, to influence more people, to have bigger people as their member, and this is really harmful because the characterizations of this extremist group that Chantika have brought to you is that they have tendency to show that they are the truest ideology, that they see themselves as a missionary, that I should deliver my that ideology, ladies and gentlemen, to spread it to, and influence other people. This extremist tendency is really, really harmful, right? Because even if we don't give them political power, they already do hate speech and preaching, right? They already being so extreme when we don't give them even political power. But ladies and gentlemen, when you give them political power, it will be even worse because it will be harmful because they will have more access to do campaign, they will have more access to do grassroots activity, they have more access because they say that I am legit political party that protected by law. Therefore, they can go to the grassroots community, for example, to spread their ideology. We said that this grassroots campaign is really, really harmful, right? Because it harmed two peoples. First, the minority people. We said that in current status quo, there are already several segmented society, ladies and gentlemen. There is, for example, a feminist woman, for example. These feminist women are currently getting backlash from them, right? This feminist woman will be even harmed if we give them political power because now they have power and legitimate actions to do so because their ideology has been legitimized by the country. And it's also harmful for the Muslim people, right? Because their preachings are tendency to show that I am the right one and it will not cater the non-Muslim people at the very first place. Also, we say that they have more tendency to do bad political campaign when we give them a legitimate power, right? Because the bad political campaign is much more addressed to the poor society due to the fact that this poor society are uneducated and easy to be influenced, right? Because this poor society will follow someone that give them the best alternative that they can get in current status quo. For example, promise them Jannah, for example, or promise them everything that can influence these people to vote this party, right? This is the performance of bad political campaign, right? Because they use religious narrative to influence other people. This is really harmful because it is hamper the democracy because people will most likely vote you because you have the trade-off in your campaign is that vote me or you will get to the hell, for example. That is hamper the political the democracy itself in the very first place. Also, my second argument, why there are no urgency to include them, ladies and gentlemen, and why protection will be better under our side of the house. First, why is no urgency? We say, ladies and gentlemen, in current political climate, people morely value on relatable things, right? People morely value for something that is populist. Therefore, that is why, for example, Democrats Party are getting more vote and are more dominant in the parliament, right? Because this legitimate Islamic party are not getting that much vote in current status quo. They will be, even if we include them, they will be harder to pass vote anyway. So what's the point of catering their ideology in the very first place? Also, ladies and gentlemen, my second analysis is that why protections of these people will be much better under our side of the house. We say, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't include them in the political sphere, they can act and perform their ideology more comfortably because but ladies and gentlemen, there will be better supervisions because there is a more hierarchical power, ladies and gentlemen, and they can perform and not limiting their Islamic movement in the very first place. Therefore, I'm proud to oppose these motions.
We think that opposition fails to understand why in status quo this far-right populist group becomes that extremist, ladies and gentlemen. There's a timeline confusion coming from opposition side of the house. We told you that to begin with, in status quo, this far-right group are not that extremist to begin with. They just run in a grassroots level and campaign and running their missionaries goal, ladies and gentlemen. But once the government told the society that they are not legitimate, that they hate this group, that they had HTI, that they should not join HTI, then this group becomes more violent, then this group becomes more extreme, like how they told you in status quo, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why that's a trigger for this far-right group to become more radical, to become more extremist, because they hate the stance from the government and because they hate that the people are currently hating them in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So because of this event, we believe that it is better to make them, include them inside of this formal political sphere for them to be able to have a legitimate action of their campaign and legitimate narratives that they would like to share to status quo, and makes government become more legitimacy and have the access to, for example, supervise and having the tractions from this far-right group in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So that is our stance in the end of the day, right? We want the government to have a supervision and traction upon this far-right populist group for them to not be that radical. And Haykal and Neny already told you why they are not be radical anyway in the end of the day. But here's the issues that I would bring inside of my speech, right? First, upon this far-right group that is not compatible with our state, and second, about the representation, and lastly, upon the discussion that will happen in the end of the day. So first of all, on this far-right populist is not compatible. Their main argumentation in here saying that because this far-right group is hard to negotiate, that they are barbaric and they create hate speech everywhere, right? But here's the thing that we think inside of government side of the house. The burden of proof of this argumentation is for you to explain that first why this is the standard to reject an organization or a party inside of political sphere. Because Neny argumentation on the principle level is that when you are democratic states, means you are democratic, means you are having a principle of democracy and you should caters everyone's voices. And second burden of proof is that why when they inside the formal political sphere, then they suddenly becomes that powerful that cannot be able to negotiate and other parties cannot counter them in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So here's my contention on the first burden of proof, right? They told you that we told you that this is not the standard to reject an organization or party inside a political sphere. First of all, we say that we cannot reject them because the basis of democratic state is that they are principally upon democracy, that every voice matters, that whatever your opinion, as long as it is for the enhancement or the development of a state and how you would like to envision the state in the future, we told you that is okay, ladies and gentlemen, because you will have a vision and a mission and you will have a legitimate narrative and campaign that you will show to the society and you will show to the society and make it as appealing for you to be chosen in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. They have to prove why in status quo they accept FPI who closes people food business in Ramadan month and not HTI in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, because they are both radical, right? So you should explain why this you only hate HTI and not others, ladies and gentlemen. We told you that every voice matters as long as it wants the enhancement and betterment for the citizens in the end of the day. And then we already told you why it will happen, right? But let's engage the practicalities, right? Okay, maybe they are that radical, they made doing the violence, but we think that political party and organization requirements require this to not happen, like how Neny's mechanism already, right? They will not be that violence because the requirements that you should not have attraction or a precedence of having a violence action, etc., etc. So most likely, when you are becoming a political party or becoming an organization like FPA, you will not do this because you will not be accepted, or your legitimacy or the law, you will not be continued like how FPA inside of status quo. But why entering political sphere is exactly the inherent interest of this far right group, right? We told you that their objective in status quo is to share ideology and to add membership, like how Iksan told you. We told you that how massive they are, how massive they are right now in status quo, right? If for example they are that massive, they will not do riot. They will not do the riot itself, ladies and gentlemen. If, for example, they are massively sharing an ideology that is radical and harmful towards the state, we told you they will not do riot like how they imagine opposition imagine in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Because if they do riot, means they claim to the government that they would like to open war to Pancasila, for example. We think that government in the status quo have more power to shut them down and have more legitimacy to shut them down because they are going violence in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. When government being kind to you, but you are not accepting it in the right manner, and you are just doing riots and, for example, pursuing people to do this radical movement, then government have more legitimacy to shut you down in the end of the day. Comparatively, if you do not engage them towards this political movement, society cannot see how is the legitimacy of the government to shut them down in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. If, for example, government just say we hate HTI, you should not join that, society cannot understand why, ladies and gentlemen, because there is no exposure upon the radicalization to all society, ladies and gentlemen. We told you if they become a political party, it means that you have to be more transparent. It means that you will have a more media coverage upon what is your narrative and what is your campaign and what is your promises in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why you should be transparent, and society will have more legitimacy if seeing you that you are that bad in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. But even if, right, even in the end of the day you will enter the parliament and they will be that harmful, we told you the society will not like it in the end of the day, right? We don't think that society and the opposition will not be stronger inside of our house in the end of the day. We believe that the fact that they are already having a legitimacy and they are being that riot, we told you the opposition inside of our house will be more stronger in against them in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So we will have more legitimacy ground upon declaring that you are bad and you are not bad in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we say to you it's better in our side of the house. But lastly, on the discussion, right? They told you that the campaign will be, for example, the election and getting member, etc., like how Iksan argumentation, right? But ladies and gentlemen, we told you that they will campaign in a manner that they say that this is the truest ideology and the truest Islam. We told you, ladies and gentlemen, why is that influential in the end of the day? We don't think that they give explanation upon why is that influential and will cater more people and will cater more people in comparison to their status quo right now, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe that it's not that influential because status quo has so many counterbalances, like how Neny and Haykal already told you. We have many political parties with variety of discussion and with variety of campaign and narrative that they propose to society, ladies and gentlemen. But second of all, they told you that there will be more discriminative towards women, minority community, etc., etc. We told you that in status quo, the status quo is already progressive. If they do this, it means we will have opposition to counter them in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. We told you that PDIP is progressive. We told you that we also have a political party like PSI in the end of the day. So even if they are that radical and they are not good inside of the parliament, there will be an opposition upon them, ladies and gentlemen. But in comparative to their side of the house, if these people are discriminating women, these people are discriminating people who are poor, we cannot track it down and cannot say that, we cannot claim that they are wrong, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't have the data, because we cannot be able to know whether they do it or not, ladies and gentlemen. Make them inside of the parliament, makes them to have makes this party to succumb to a situation that they should be transparent upon what they do inside of their status quo in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Making them more transparent means making more legitimacy for coming from the government and the opposition to say that they are wrong and you should not follow them in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So all the characterizations that they told you is already happening exactly in the side of their status quo. The question is that why in your side of the house that you can defend the status quo and you can make betterment upon the status quo, ladies and gentlemen. We told you that inside of status quo right now, the opposition is not that strong because there is a balance of power coming from their side of the house, ladies and gentlemen. Make them legitimate, makes more legitimation for us to oppose them in the end of the day. Thank you.
The existence of these kinds of extremist community in the first place has already caused a lot of chaos and spreading fear for those who are not in line with their ideologies. Hence, imagine all the chaos and casualties if they have legitimate power, right? So before I move in towards the clashes, I would like to throw several clarification. On their side of the house, it is very problematic for them to claim that these kinds of extremist communities are not that extremist in the first place, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why these communities are being called extremists is because they are doing extreme things to make their ideology stand in the status quo. Therefore, their claim are very problematic to begin with. So, before I move in towards my clashes, I'll try to throw several independent responses towards the government side of the house. Kak Vira saying that those communities once actually has good intentions, but they are being radical because we as a government, we oppress them, right? But we say that it's going to be the same under their side when we give them political power, because the moment you are entering a political system, you actually need to adjust towards the several things. For example, you have to reduce certain degrees of your ideologies to not be too extreme, to actually match with the the whole society's interest, for example. And we said that those kinds of things are more harmful because notice that these kinds of communities, they value their ideology so much more than politics, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we said that these kinds of scenarios will lead to more chaotic actions conducted by this extremist group. For example, in the status quo, when Hati opens public discussions, right, when they are alone being supervised, they already feel offended by it. And imagine when they have to enter the political system where they have to be controlled and to be adjusted by the government. Imagine all of the kinds of things that they have to, they are going to conduct, right? So moving on towards the clashes in today's debate. In today's debate, it is divided under two clashes. First, which side are going to be in line with the democracy principle, and the second clashes is which side are going to bring benefits toward the political situation in the country. So the first clashes. On the government side of the house, they are saying that on their proposal are going to bring are going to be in line with the idea of democracy under two reasons. First, they are saying that on their side, it will cater all ideologies because we are not limiting anyone to actually voicing out their voices, right? But we said that not giving them political power does not mean that we are prohibiting that these kinds of communities to voice out their ideologies, ladies and gentlemen. There are actually lots of medias for you to actually voice out your opinions or your ideologies, such as social media or other platform that are actually there to begin with. Therefore, we said that having political power is not actually is not the only platform for these kinds of communities to voice out their ideologies, right? And the second reason they are saying that because they respect all of the people. It is not exclusive on their side, because on our side we are also respecting these kinds of individuals. By Kak Chesa already tell you that we allow these kinds of people to voice out their ideologies, and we also allow these kinds of communities to actually participate in the election, in the voting for the election, and so on and so forth. Therefore, we are not prohibiting them in any kind of way. So comparing onto our side, Chesa already told you that our proposal are going to be the only proposal that are going to be in line with the democracy, because the trade-off that we are giving, that they give to you are not going to be in line with the democracy principle. So we are going to follow the characteristic of democracy, right? First, because we cater of all ideologies, right? Notice that the moment these kinds of extremist communities have political power, we said that they will establish and manage the political strategy that will only be in line with their extreme ideologies, ladies and gentlemen. The moment they establish policies like this, we said that the chance of them are going to let ideologies in are going to be very difficult, right? Therefore, the political system are going only just because of their are only going to be insist of consists of their ideologies, right? Therefore, and it is very backlashing with the principle of democracy, because democracy strives for diversity and freedom of individuals, and we want and the moment we and on our side, we are going to cater all ideologies, because we are preventing these kinds of communities to actually monopoly the political system in itself. And on our side, we also respect all of layers of society, right? So moving on towards the second clashes, which side are going to bring benefits towards the political system in the country? On their side, they're saying that the benefit that they are going to give you, first, the media portrayal of these communities are going to be better. Second, because it is easier to control them. And lastly, it will change their radical values, right? So, moving on the first reasons. Their first reason saying that the media portrayal of these communities are going to be better. We said that in the status quo, media covers them in a bad way because they are doing a lot of radical things. And the moment we give them power, they now can actually abuse those power to manipulate the media to see them as a holy saint of this world and can brainwash the society to think so. And we said that that is very detrimental because it will be backlashing with their action and what they are being portrayed in the media. And therefore, then the society then there will be a lie there, right? And therefore the society will think the government as a bad government because the government are actually manipulating the media, right? Therefore we said that that will be very detrimental on their side. And the second thing that they said, it is very easier to control them. We said that it won't be easier to control them now that they have more capital, they have more power to begin with, and the chance of them gonna abuse those power are there because those particular communities are created in the first place because they only want to establish their own interests and ideologies, right? Therefore, we said that it is very hard for us to control them when they have power, and the moment we do not give them the power, it is easier to control them actually because like Iksan say to you that there is a hierarchy of power, right? Because we as the government have actually the power to control you when you are acting like a local citizens and not being in the political system in the first place. So moving on towards the comparison of the base case and worst case scenario, right? On our side, we are even if we do not give those particular communities have political power, they might be more extreme radical, right? But we said that that is okay because they are under government supervision and also they don't have the power to spread their harmful and extreme ideologies comparing when they are in the they have political power, they will be even more extreme on their side. So because of those reasons, we are so proud to oppose.